Fit and finish is expensive, but how much should you really expect to pay for a knife that's finished just a little bit nicer? Let's look at all of these knives together and compare them on their fit and finish, because that's what all of these knives are known for. The primary knife that we'll be looking at today, and the knife by which all others will be compared in this video, is this Survive Knives EDC4 with a full flat grind. This is a wonderfully finished blade, but is it finished well enough to deserve the reputation that Survive has earned? So this is the Survive EDC4. Now, I'm not intending to talk about anything in this video except for fit and finish, because if nothing else, when it comes to things that are positive, this is what Survive Knives is known for. And the fit and finish is in fact quite good. When I asked people online how good the fit and finish on a Survive knife is as compared to some other brands, they said you just have to own one to really appreciate it. And being a knife reviewer like I am, especially when it comes to more expensive knives where we see less reviews, I want to know for myself. So today, focusing purely on fit and finish, we're going to look across these knives up close and in detail, and I'm going to give you a little bit of commentary on what I think about how this knife compares to the others. So we're going to start off with the Survive here again. Obviously not the perfect or most ideal lighting for me to do this video in, but I think that we can do a good enough job. Everywhere that you touch on this knife is nicely finished. The kydex is separated from a lot of production kydex in its thickness. I believe this is a 0.08 thickness. And that click is fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're talking about fit and finish here, because that is all that we are comparing. We are going to look at the blade and the sheath. We're going to look at the whole package. And really what we're looking for is attention to detail, quality control, fit and finish, and value. Ultimately, all of these knives on the table here are more expensive than your run-to-the-mill average guy's knife, and we want to know if they are worth it, or really if the Survive is worth it. So first off, when it comes to the edge and fit and finish, we typically look at things as simple as, is the grind symmetrical? Is the grind straight? Is the apex centered? And is the grind appropriate for the task at which the knife is designed to be used? And is the steel appropriate? When it comes to the EDC4, it is perfectly centered. Plunge lines are beautiful. Apex is nice and nicely centered. I want to give extra bonus points to the Survive knife for how thin this edge is. Measuring in at about 18 thou, this is a paper thin edge that is just wonderfully finished. And that does take extra attention to detail. It is in CPM 3V, so a steel with nice toughness and a bit of corrosion resistance. A good steel to choose with an edge thickness that is this thin. And all in all, a good package for an EDC knife. Now, with that being said, I purchased this knife for a little bit over $200 from Arizona Custom Knives. And I didn't realize how thin this edge was with how fine this tip is. For my uses in the woods, I think I prefer something a little bit beefier. So I am probably going to sell or trade this ideally for another Survive, so that I can have a knife that is more appropriate to the tasks that I want to use it for. But the edge, talk about beautiful. The spine here, again, it's not a bushcraft knife, so the whole spine is wonderfully rounded and deburred, incredibly comfortable to the touch. It sits just slightly proud of the scales all the way around, but the way that it is rounded, it is absolutely beautiful. These scales are not only rounded across their section here, but they're also slightly 3D. So we have a 3D shape to them, a little bit of a Coke bottle feel, and this knife melts into the hand. Beautiful detail here with the lanyard hole, beautiful hardware. So at $200 is, if you can buy one in stock and you can get it shipped to you like a normal knife, at just over $200, is there value in this knife? Absolutely, 1000%. Again, with the sheath too, overall package, 10 out of 10. Fantastic. Now, there are some things that we're going to talk about in this video that I don't care about, that some of you guys will. And we're going to see if I can show some of those things today. I might have to do a clip of this knife in better lighting. Can you see a little bit of grind lines or mill lines underneath this heavy stonewash? Yes. Can you feel them? No. It is not a mirror finish at all, but it is an incredibly nice finish. Some knife snob could complain about the lines underneath the stonewash finish, but I'm not even going to be able to show them to you here. It's little things like that that we might note in any of these knives. Next up, let's look at this Scandinoff. This is the Scandinoff Protector 130 EDC. So another EDC knife, 130 millimeters. So about a 5-inch blade, beautiful G10 handle scales. It's hard to compare fit and finish and value between a leather sheath and a Kydex sheath. However, the sheath comes formed, which is something that we don't often see with leather sheaths, and it is of fantastic quality. So I'm going to say that we are equal in the sheath department here. Edge thickness for intended use, if I remember right, we are sitting right at 20 thou. I'll post up a correction here if I need to. A perfect edge thickness, not crazy thin like the Survive. It's a little bit more, a little bit safer edge thickness, all things considered, especially given that we've got a Sax here with this tip, and if this grind was as thin as that Survive, it would be far too thin. I think that would be much too weak, even for an EDC knife. As it stands, I think edge thickness is perfectly suited to an EDC knife that will also go out into the bush. I feel more comfortable with this knife in the woods than I do with the Survive when it comes to edge thickness. 14C28N, fantastic knife steel with similar toughness to CPM 3V, similar edge holding, and by far superior corrosion resistance. Again, we have a rounded spine. That is a nice feature to see in an EDC knife. It makes use really comfortable. Again, that tang is proud of the scales here. On this knife, it's a little bit more proud. So this tang sticks out past the scales a little bit further than they do on the EDC, but they are crowned so nicely that it is very, very comfortable. This is a much different handle. Again, 3D contoured. Much different handle than the Survive, so it fills the hand more fully, and I believe personally is probably going to be potentially cause less fatigue on the hand for extended use, making this knife not better or worse but different. and a little bit more viable again in the woods. The only thing on this knife that I think is not quite as nice when it comes to being Gucci as the Survive is the handle hardware. We have fairly standard handle hardware here. I don't care about that, and I wouldn't pay $1 more to have fancy handle scale hardware. But there you have it. Once again, we're talking about things that I don't necessarily care about that maybe you do. But the finish under this stonewash and under this grind, no lines visible in any light. Potentially, if that is the type of thing that you care about, potentially this could be, in that regard, the nicer finished knife. Next up here, this is the Rewild Gear Jasper 4. This leather is not the factory leather. This was done by Michael Spaniers at Spirit of the Bear Designs. I absolutely love his work, but the Kydex is factory. Wonderful click in and out. I would rate this Kydex as being on par with the Survive Knives Kydex. And then this thing is an absolute beaut. Very thin edge geometry. Again, just like the Survive, just thin as can be. I actually haven't measured the thickness on this edge, so in post-processing and editing, I'm going to have to edit it and put the edge thickness in here. But it is thin. However, the tip is a little more obtuse, so we've got a bit of a stronger tip. This is S35VN. I've used this knife considerably, and I don't have concerns about edge thickness or toughness so long as I'm doing things that are practical with the knife. I've done a good bit of batoning and stuff like that. Not really concerned. Ferro rod notch is an extra little piece of attention to detail. Absolutely throws flames. A little bit of beautifully done jimping here. Not too aggressive to cause discomfort. Handle scales are different on the Jasper 4 as compared to the last two knives. So we have nicely finished scales. You see this edge here, especially in this light, but your hand really does not. These are incredibly comfortable handle scales, and they're actually a little bit more upscale, believe it or not, than the G10 on either of the last two knives, because this TerraTough is a very lightweight, very grippy material that is even allegedly tougher and more flexible than the G10. And it grips more when it's wet. It's a less common material to find. It's a more expensive material. I absolutely love it. However, we don't have the 3D contouring as much. Maybe just very slightly here with the palm swell. A very slight Coke bottle here, but not as much on the other knives. I don't ding the knife for that at all. No kind of marks underneath the stonewash. This knife, it definitely is probably in the top 3 for favorite production knives. I've got a long-term review almost entirely filmed in an adventure. It needs to go up. This thing is an absolute bargain at the cost and is as good a production knife as money can buy. I would not hesitate to get it alongside a Survive. I don't think that anybody would be wrong if they got a Survive instead of a Jasper 4 based on fit, finish, and quality. And I would not be surprised if anybody picked this over a Survive. Fantastic knife. Here's one that's hotly debated. This is the TRC Apocalypse. TRC out of Lithuania is a brand that is making some massive splashes, and again, they're making some massive splashes because of the materials that they use and their fit and finish. The fit and finish is phenomenal. We've got a big, thick hunk of Elmax here, which is an odd choice. Fully rounded at the spine, attention to detail everywhere. Comfortable handles. Again, the spine is slightly proud of the handle scales. That seems to be a reoccurring theme when it comes to these nicer knives. Beautiful, beautifully flared tube pins here. However, as compared to the last knives, these are relatively flat scales. So as much as this knife is just wonderfully fit and finished, the knife does not melt into the hand quite as much as it does with some of the other knives that are shown here. However, it is so beautifully finished that there's no hot spots, and everywhere that you touch is still nice. The grind, more of a satin finish there, I think is absolutely beautiful. The Kydex sheath, however, is not quite up to par as compared to some of the other knives here. It is nice. It is serviceable. I probably wouldn't replace it, but it is not quite up to par. So this is our first fit and finish knife where I think we might actually be, in certain ways, slightly lagging behind some of the other knives that we've looked at here. This knife is the first knife on this list that comes from a somewhat mainstream production company, and that is White River Knife and Tool. Now, the other knives that I've shown here, as I understand it, you can pretty much buy whenever you like, which is not the case with the Survive. But the White River Knife and Tool, this is a mainstream knife from a mainstream brand. It has had the crap used out of it. This is the Firecraft FC7 from White River Knife and Tool. Like the TRC, you don't have a lot of 3D contouring. You do have it taper up to the front here, but you have beautifully rounded scales. This thing melts into the hand. You have nice jimping here. However, the spine, although the edge is broken, is not rounded. So it's not quite, the spine does not melt in the hand quite so much as some of these other options. However, this jimping, it is incredibly comfortable, and then you have this nice ferro rod notch, which is some nice attention to detail. This finish on this edge is so nice that you can see these reflections in it. Absolutely beautiful. Edge finishing right at just above 20, just at 22 thou, incredibly thin, and yet I've beat on this knife and it's held up wonderfully. We've got tubes as our pins here. They're not flared quite as nicely as the TRC. They're a little more basic, and yet they're still nice. But then we have the ferro rod divot, steel machined, slicker than butter, beautifully done. And the Kydex is slightly thinner than the Survive, but it still clicks in well. It doesn't glide in and out as smoothly as the others. You get a slight drag there, but wonderful click in, wonderful click out, and we get a nicer dangler on this one. This is leather with a button here. I don't know if they still do this. This might have changed over to the horse tack, like the nylon webbing with the rubberized coating. I'm not 100% sure, but this knife is a little bit more value oriented than the Survive. It's easier to get. Price for what you're getting for the size is a little more affordable. But this, I said the Jasper 4 was probably my top 3 for production knives. This absolutely is as well. It is a crazy value that is not bragged on nearly enough. So it might not have some of the flair and some of the details as some of these other knives, but it's punching way above its weight class. This knife is amazing. Next up, we have the Reef Knives F4. This isn't actually the sheath that they come in. I have the Kydex on the F6 that they come in, and I should have brought it to talk about. But, of course, I did not. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's how it happened. Reef, again, known for fit and finish, feel in hand, amazing handle scale contouring. Edge is a lot, I'd say a little thicker than everything else that we've looked at here today, but it's slightly hollow ground. So when it comes to slicing, it feels like it's thinner than it actually is. I'm going to have to once again put into the video the actual edge thickness here, since I should know. I guess I should do that with all of these. But all in all, beautiful knife. Square spine here, because this was meant to strike a ferro rod, obviously. Now, the F6 came with a square-ish spine. My newer F6. I'm not so much a fan of that. So let's break the edge all the way if you don't want a square spine. Let's round the edge more significantly if we don't want a square edge. Or let's do a square edge, in my opinion. Like, whatever we do, let's do it all the way. So on my F6, getting a square-ish edge, I didn't like that nearly as much. I had that squared up for me. But again, edge is perfect. The way that these handles fit and the way that the knives are weighted is very much handle heavy. So the knife feels like it becomes a part of you when you hold it in your hand. It is one of the most comfortable knives out here to hold and to work with for a long duration. The sheath on my F6, the Kydex sheath, is good, but not amazing. So it is a production knife sheath. I think it still offers a fantastic package overall. I think that it deserves to be in league with the other knives here. However, it does lag just slightly behind some of these others when it comes to attention to detail and fit and finish because of those reasons. Primarily the spine being, square-ish, and the sheath is not quite as good. I will say, though, in a lot of ways, I think their handles make up for it. I mean, I'm just such a huge fan of their handles, probably because I use knives a lot and for a long period of time. That weighs very heavily in my book. All right, next two knives are different than the ones that we've looked at before because they are coated blades. This is the Chris Reeves Green Beret 7. Often looked at as an absolute grail knife, again, for fit and finish, attention to detail, and design. Again, we see a spine that is proud of the handle scales. Some people hate that. I don't if it's done right. We have a spine that is nicely rounded. Once again, it's hard to really compare a coated knife to uncoated knives because the coating could potentially hide some machining marks and stuff like that. However, this thing is fit and finish wise absolutely beautifully fantastic. The attention to detail that is put into the machining of the scales, all of the detail here through the center and all this other stuff is absolutely beautiful. Everything that you grab is comfortable. The edge, of course, is centered. I'm not as much a fan of it. I need to test this edge thickness as well, but it's far thicker than what I would prefer. It's pretty heavily convexed. So the first thing that you hear when we talk about this knife on the internet is everybody and their mother says, "Oh, I heard those get dull really fast because they heat treat them too soft." They feel like they get dull faster, in my opinion, because the edge is thicker and because of the way that it's convex. And I'll put a link to a convex video up here, but I think it's not anything having to do with their steel selection or how hard they are. This one is S35VN, just like quite a few that we looked at over there. But I think it all comes down to the grind choice. And in my opinion here, This is meant to be a soldier's knife, so they were going for toughness, and a thicker convex edge will give you that toughness. I think they went a little bit too far with it, and I think that the type of convex that they chose was not ideal. We've been talking about sheaths. When it comes to the sheath, this is nowhere near the league of these other knives. Like even the Reef. The Reef has what I would say is the least impressive sheath out of this lineup of knives, and this is far less impressive than that. Better probably than a Tops or an older Ontario, but only by a small bit. It is, however, still completely practical. But if we're talking about a whole package here and bang for buck and value, I guess a soldier can strap this onto his kit potentially easier, but no, it's not there. I'm sorry. Not anywhere close. We're going to wrap this up with the Phobos. This is a legend in and of itself. This is a knife where a man took a lot of time thinking about small details. Again, it's coated. So there is the potential that somebody could say, oh, well, the coating can potentially hide some of the machining in there. But when you hold this knife, I think that you will realize, like I have, that that is simply not the case. And this is DLC anyways, which isn't actually a coating. Everything on this knife has been touched by a machine or a person. Every single little detail. It's absolutely fantastic. In so many ways. Now, when it comes to fit and finish, ergonomically, I think it's very, very good. It's very busy, but that's all right. We will talk more about this knife in full when we do our full review on it. But it's very good. But fit and finish wise, it is easily up there with the Survive. Talking about the sheath. We have a leather sheath, which is hard, again, to compare to Kydex, but it is an absolutely beautiful leather sheath, ferro rod holder, horizontal straps. You can set it up for scout carry, for belt carry, for long belt carry, for short belt carry, for whatever you want. It's beautiful. I absolutely love it. I do feel like one small oversight is that the button snap does not do anything. Knife goes in and out without the strap being employed or removed. So that's a small nick on the overall package. However, and this is in Magna Cut, I would still carry this thing in a freaking heartbeat. I like this setup a lot. And while we are here, we'll talk about some other little things here. The bottle's Clean Canteen, because someone will ask. I'm a massive fan. This is a Coleman lantern. It's a small one that I got as an anniversary gift. Thanks, Dad. Like more than a decade ago. The Hidden Woodsman small pouch here. You guys know that when I need just purely go-to high-quality gear, I go with the Hidden Woodsman. Ferro rod is Exotech, because to heck with the commies. Fantastic ferro rod. It is getting to be beyond time for a rod replacement, though. And the bag is Colorado Bushcraft. It is absolutely beautiful. This isn't going to be my go-to war bag, because every detail on this pack requires you to slow down and take a little bit more time and think about what you're doing and enjoy the process a little bit more. But for a lot of the stuff that I do, man, I'm on board. Fantastic pack, made in Colorado. So that hopefully will answer those questions. That's going to wrap it up, guys. For those of you wondering, I get messages every single day like, Jake, can you please compare visually the details of different knives in the worst possible conditions in the middle of the night so that we can hardly see what you're looking at? And you know, I'm the man for the job. I'm just kidding. The day certainly got away from me here, but I really wanted to do this video while I have time to do this video. Things have been crazy busy, obviously. And also at the end of the day, This might be my least practical video because we're talking about some details that don't matter nearly so much as actual quality and use. And that's where I want to spend the bulk of my time, is really design, right? And quality of manufacturing, quality of materials, quality of heat treat. That's kind of my bread and butter. So this looks a little bit nicer than that, and ooh, this detail's a little nicer than that. That's not really my thing, but I wanted to do it anyways. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Hopefully everything was good enough to at least give you an idea of what I was talking about. But it's New Year's, and this is how I wanted to spend my evening, so that's what I did. I will be reviewing that Chris Reeves in a full review. I will be pounding on that thing. I'll be doing the same on a Randall. I will probably let the Chris Reeves go afterwards, and that should be happening soon. The TRC Apocalypse I'm borrowing, so I'm going to do a full review on that does not involve real pounding. We'll do some regular batoning, but there won't be any true pounding, and I will send that back. That'll be a little bit shorter review, but that's going to be coming up soon. And I've got some bussy on the way, so I'm excited to work with that as well.